Well, hey there, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of our brand new show, She Knows. Now, today I've got a really exciting guest on the show, and I'm actually really keen to pick her brain because there's a lot of things that she does in her day-to-day that our listeners are going to take a lot of value from, especially now that we're living in a virtual environment and digital times where, marketing ourselves and our businesses online has never been more competitive. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about her and her background, and then I'm going to introduce her. So she's a proud member of the Type 1 Foundation here in Geelong, which I just think is awesome. She's also been the founder and owner of Itty Bitty Book Fan. And for the last 3 or so years, she's been the founder of Yellow Door Digital right here in Geelong. So she traverses over things like SEO, AdWords, social media, web design, the whole gamut of digital. I'd love to introduce to you all Kerry Bennett. How are you?
Hi, Brandon. Hi, everyone.
Great to have you on the show. How are you travelling in lockdown?
Oh, like everybody, we're just juggling all the things and trying to work out what number we're up to now.
I know it's full on to a degree. We had a little bit of a reprieve in Geelong, but then sure enough, we were locked straight back down. So challenges around everywhere, but I'm very keen actually to ask you at the head, given the times we're in, right, and people are sort of doing even more online, how's a business like yours been impacted, from a positive, negative, or all the same manner, given that you do digital marketing?
Yeah, good question. And, when we first went into lockdown, we had lots of people panicked and, really going, right, I need to go online, I need to happen now. So we had an influx of work, but it wasn't necessarily work that was well thought out or well planned. So it was great to be able to help some people, but also help them maybe calm down and try and work out a plan forward. And so I think now we've come through lockdown a little bit more, or different lockdowns. People have started to see their customers transitioning to online and how they can kind of grab that as well. So they seem to have an element of calm. There's still, people sort of taking some notes and going, okay, what do I need to do next? What do I do next? But people, have taken a leaf out and gone, hey, e-commerce is serious. It's not just just a thing that I might think about anymore. It's something I need to do for my business. So I've been really fortunate that I can work from home when I need to with my kids, but also help businesses out and transition to that online sort of platform if they hadn't already, or scale up if they kind of had gone there but hadn't really done too much.
Yeah, absolutely. So have you found that people now being in this type of environment have developed more of an appetite to educate themselves on how to understand their digital marketing and elements of their business more, or are they just way more distracted by pressing issues and they just need someone like you, a partner like you, to just take care of it for them?
Yeah, it's a bit of both. And you have got those people that the customers, they want to still shop with those stores. And I think even for the smaller e-commerce stores, people are going, all right, well, I don't necessarily want to shop at Officeworks or, some of the big brand stores. I'm happy to buy local or buy for those people that I know are going to do a happy dance when the little cha-ching comes through that someone's bought from my store. So having a presence online and having a nice usability sort of through that site is something that's become important to people. People are starting to understand that they can make some money and they can service their customers. Even if you've had bricks and mortar store and you've got a lovely store and you're happy in that retail environment, they're working out how they can transition that, still have that same sort of level of contact and customer service with their clients through their email channels or through special little notes when they send things out, even follow-up emails and things like that.
So if you had to sort of bottle down the one key thing that Yellow Door does that, you're untouchable on, you're just the absolute best at, it's your secret sauce, where do you hang your hat and say, this is where we can't be beaten?
That's a pretty strong statement. I do a lot of work in the SEO space and particularly for e-commerce stores, even further than that on the Shopify platform. So I wouldn't say I'm untouchable in that space, but I do spend a lot of time in that space and working with a lot of female-owned businesses. So I guess in that space, that's where I hang out the most, whether you want to say untouchable. There's lots of businesses out there that kind of do that stuff, but I spend a lot of time in it and I love it and I keep learning about it all the time. So it's my happy place.
So you mentioned SEO, and look, I've spent time in my career selling SEO, and I'm sure it's changed a little bit, but I do recall that particular service and industry being, predominantly male skewed. How have you navigated that? And has it become a bit of a point of difference or a breath of fresh air to some clients, being able to access a guru like you that's not a man,
Yeah, well, it is that that area of digital marketing that seems to have more males in it than females, when digital marketing has lots of great females in it, and I would even say maybe more females than males. But in this area of digital marketing called SEO, or search engine optimization, the skew tends to be male. And I've always loved SEO as somebody that worked inside businesses as their digital producers and their marketing managers. SEO was always kind of part of my job, wasn't my full job. And I just kind of liked it a lot. And so it's kind of got that technical element that feeds that need that I have. And then also such a practical element that, you do this and this should happen. So it's kind of a bit scientific. And I think that's why it skews male, because it's kind of right up there with IT and the sciencey type of things because of the way it works. I think that's why it skews male. And, if there's 100 people in an SEO kind of conference, probably 10 of them would be female. So yes, it definitely, in my experience, skews male. And I think females, and particularly what I try and bring to the table, is being very transparent. When SEO's had a really bad name of being, a bit black magic, I can't tell you what I'm going to do because it's all very secret sauce and that type of stuff. And I'm an oversharer just by nature. So I want to teach people, and I love SEO. So I want to tell people how it's all happening and work. And I think my clients really appreciate that transparency, and especially in a field where they don't necessarily understand it. So I think there's room for lots of females to be involved in SEO because just the nature of communication is strong, and that sharing of information, we're not cagey, we haven't got egos. I mean, some of us have, of course, and some males are definitely good at communicating as well. So I'm generalizing. But yeah, I've found that the lack of ego and then willing to share information and not and raise each other up is stronger in that sort of female cohort. So yeah.
I just want to ask about SEO there, because obviously in my experience, I know things like search engine optimization is what SEO stands for, and it's the area on Google where they're not paid ads, and there seems to be an element of having to create articles and content on your website that's relevant to your business and your services, but then also some form of linking with other websites that are credible. But if you had to maybe say one thing about SEO for a business that you've noticed is really important right now, as opposed to maybe 12, 24 months ago, has there been some kind of shift or something that you've noticed is really important for businesses they might not quite be aware of?
I think maybe it's a shift in thinking that, before we're trying to beat Google as an algorithm, there's lots of talk about, how can we get better? How can we get better? Google's a product as well. And we're Google's customers. When we type in, buy the shoes or buy the TV or was I trying to buy something from Bunnings this morning for Father's Day, probably. It's not about trying to beat Google. It's trying to help Google understand what your product is and let Google know that, you've got a really good piece of content here, or the right piece of content to match what the user's query is. Google is only getting smarter, endless resources, the AI kind of coming through and the understanding about what a searcher is looking for. Sometimes Google understand what we're searching for better than we do. And that's all about the intent that we're trying to type in there. Google's got some intelligence around that. So it's not about beating out Google anymore. It's trying to give Google all the tools to say, this is what our content is about. And when someone searches for that, this is a really good match. Here you go. Here's our content. So yeah, not about beating Google. It's about appealing to Google when you have the right content.
Yeah, I love that. Now, considering we're, in this lockdown and people's routines have been thrown completely out of whack, I know you're telling me offline you're navigating homeschooling as well, and it's a challenge to say the least. But one I reckon someone like you would be up for, because you'd be pretty time efficient with the type of business you run and managing multiple clients. But if you had to break down for me maybe what a typical day in the life can look like for you, maybe share with the listener and viewers what that looks like.
Sometimes it looks like an absolute mess, to be honest, but on a good day, let's pretend it's a really good day. And I've got 2 school-age children, they're both primary school, so like lots of mums, I've taken on the I guess the caring duties, responsibilities at home, as well as managing a business, and my business is full time. So that's challenging in itself. But I went into business to be able to spend that time with my kids and to be able to pick them up from school. So that means, there's compromises in there somewhere. So it's getting up and getting the kids ready and getting them off to school. And then, you have to have really planned diaries and times and blocked out times that you're going to get stuff done. If I'm coding a new website or doing some ad hoc coding, I can't really be interrupted by school pickup. So I have to plan when I'm going to be doing that. So, it's pretty much about using the time that I have without the kids being there to do those hard tasks. And, I do sometimes switch on at night. I'm really getting better at it. I'm not a perfect model of how a business should work. I've definitely been known to click on at night, but I try not to, because it's not great for our well-being.
Yeah.
But sometimes if I need to get something done and I need distraction free and I haven't had that time, then that's when it has to happen. So
there's something about getting work done when everyone's kind of clocked off, but also from a creative perspective, I've read a lot about people whose brains actually can be more creative of an evening or later. It's crazy how that works, but sometimes a really hyper-productive time.
Yeah, and it's not ideal to work till, quite late in the evening. I get that, but sometimes it's what has to happen. And I find I have zones of genius that I'm really discovering about myself as well. And if I'm driving in the car, I have the most amazing ideas sometimes and the most amazing clarity. And I think sometimes that's because I'm not at my computer, I'm not answering my phone, I'm not looking at anything, I'm just driving. And I can listen to a podcast. My kids can't really get me to do anything because I'm busy doing the driving. So my mind is actually free to just sort of wander. Of course, I'm concentrating on the road as well, but I find that I sort of have some clarity when I'm driving. Unfortunately, I can't drive past 5Ks at the moment. So, cut laps around the block, trying to find my clarity. It's quite hilarious.
Well, you've kind of answered a little bit of this next question around talking about how in most elements of digital marketing, it's more skewed towards females. But what I wanted to ask was, have you found any gender-specific challenges that you've had to face, not just in digital, but also just starting a business and navigating and running a business?
I think for me personally, there's been a bit of confidence that was challenging when you're in an area where you do turn up to those things. And it's not like me necessarily to turn up to a big event. I have to really push myself to do that. And then finding that you're only one of 5 females in a room of 100, it can be quite daunting, and to actually know that what you've got to say and whatever is relevant. So it's taken a long time to kind of push myself out there. And as I'm getting older and been in the industry a bit longer, I found it really important to turn up, to be present at those events, to help the numbers, because if I'm not there, then that's only 4 people in the room that are female, talking about this. So sort of at least paving the way to go, there's a place for females in this, even if I'm not feeling the most confident that day. It's going, what I've got to offer is relevant. And I think, men and the males in the room definitely have a lot to offer in that SEO space as well. But sort of both of us coming together can really solve a problem really well. So being present in the room has been a challenge I've had to really push myself into. And knowing that I've got some experience behind me now, showing those who consider SEO as a career path and they're female, it's like, yes, there are others there too. There's someone to have that glass of wine with and talk SEO with, and we're growing in the room. We will be more in number, I think, going forward.
Yeah, excellent. Who were your role models growing up, and who were some females doing amazing things when you were growing up that you really admired or look toward? And they could be sports people, they could be actors, they could be just people anonymous to us. But yeah, who were some of those people?
Yeah, well, you sort of sent this question through actually to me, and I had a big think about it. And I sort of was in my primary school years in the 80s, if you want to do the numbers on my age there. And I didn't necessarily have a lot. I was into sport. I sort of still am. And not necessarily female centric, but Andrew Gaze was my hero, still pretty much is actually. How good is he? But even Michelle Timms, that kind of level as well. I loved that type of stuff, but not female. But my dad has always taken on female centric roles in the house, not by design, by practicality, right? So growing up in my household, there wasn't these defined roles that as an adult we go, there were lots of females doing this particular role. So I think just from growing up, I didn't have these defined men and women roles. You know, my dad would cook fruitcake on the weekend for our school lunches. And it was, like I said, not by design, but for practicality. My mum worked, my dad worked. There was a lot of equality in my house. Looking back, I didn't see it at the time, but looking back on it, I never was shoved into kind of those little boxes and thinking about that. So in a way, my dad has been a bit of a role model in going, you know, you do whatever is necessary and you fit in wherever you can and whatever you enjoy doing and what makes things work. So I definitely had those role models, but they weren't necessarily the female role models. I think now we've got so many amazing young women who are charging forward. I mean, even Michelle Payne, you know, things like that, where you've got these amazing role models that our kids today, even Julia Gillard, first female Prime Minister, was sort of became the Prime Minister when my son was born. I thought this is a great moment in time that we've actually stepped forward, and that's happened for us. So, you know, there's those types of things that I think today there's lots more female role models. Not that they weren't back then, but I couldn't think of one, I guess, Brandon, is what I'm saying, that I particularly look towards.
That's good. So I want to ask you, right, now that you've been the business owner, the starter of the business a couple of times, and you've also ventured into a space that's, I would probably say it's highly competitive. It's flooded with providers, but not all are fantastic and good. Are there a couple of key things that you'd like to see change, or maybe you'd like to try and change now, whether it's to do with the barrier or the ease at which you were able to start your own business, or maybe around how people can define finding the right partner digitally? Because, you know, I personally have had experiences where I've chosen someone who looked great on paper and we started, and then the relationship just turned to crap. And it's like, I remember thinking to myself, I just wish I could have known how to better size a provider up, you know, but you tell me.
Yeah, I think knowing that it's okay to continue to ask those questions and not know. You know, the internet can provide us so many answers and we can do our own research, but sometimes, you know, I've been the digital marketing person in a company and had to talk to the experts and feeling like I couldn't ask that question because I should already know that. And I'd really like to just say it's okay to ask all those questions. It's on those experts to be able to break that down for you and really communicate that well with people. So I think just asking the question and really understanding what it is you need. And part of what you need is to know what's happening for you. Don't go blindly paying over your money and not know what's happening. Feel empowered by you making a decision. And so that's why I guess I'm so transparent and feel that there's a place for a business like Yellow Door Digital in the world, because I try to be really transparent and make people not feel like it's a silly question. Come on the journey, learn as much as you want, but learn as much as you're comfortable to know to then move forward.
Yeah, excellent. So I've often talked to people about Elon Musk. I'm not sure if you've seen, he does a post online about why people go to baby showers and how when someone says they're going to start a business, we should all have business showers where we all go and take gifts and give people great advice. Let's imagine that you're going to one now, and with the experience you've got now, what's probably that one key thing you're taking to impart on the new business owner?
Oh, good one. Okay, so I'm off to the party. Someone's starting their business, which I think is a great idea, to be honest, to celebrate, you know, that first day. We do see often on socials people go 4 years in business and they have the balloons. But yeah, day one, we're not necessarily celebrating that. And I think if I could take a bucket of confidence and a bucket of time for them, that would be great. I actually had a friend who was inside a business and she's going, I should go out on my own, I should do it. And she just didn't do it for about 2 years. She ended up taking the plunge. It was all about confidence and not knowing whether she was going to get a client. And I was the same 4 years ago. Oh my God, is the phone going to ring? Am I going to get someone? And I do remember the first client that rang, and it wasn't even the right client for me. They kind of want print marketing and, you know, 360-degree marketing. And I was like, hey, that's actually not what I do. So really understanding, I guess, what niche is and what you're good at, having the confidence to tell people and knowing the phone will ring. So that friend who 2 years ago, she's now out on her own as a freelancer as well and booked out. That happened within 12 months. So the phone will ring, have confidence, back yourself and know what it is you do, like that real targeted niche, which is a terrible word when you go into business for the first time. I did as well. It's like, I do digital marketing. I've definitely got skills in Google Ads and Facebook and socials, but particularly what I like to focus on. And I mean, I want to stay intentionally small, so I can, manage the kids and do that. I don't want to manage too many people. So intentionally small means I can't do all the things and do them all equally well. So I'm sort of forced to niche down. And if I had done that sooner, I think I would have had a lot more clarity sooner. So that new person going into business, what is it you actually want to do? What does your life look like? What does success mean to you? Is it big buckets of cash, or is it actually having that life balance and being able to go to the kids' assemblies when we're allowed to go to a kids' assembly, I guess? But
yeah,
what does success mean? And so many people put, I think, success down to a dollar figure. But for me, that's not what success is at all. It's about doing something I really love and enjoy, working with great clients, helping them discover whatever it is they need to do. So there's lots of different things that equal success to me, and it isn't necessarily a number that sits in the bank or comes in through the invoices.
Excellent. So
really long answer to a really simple question, probably, Brandon. Sorry about that.
No, I'm going to put an order in on your Shopify store for a bucket of confidence and a bucket of time.
Yeah, they're freely available, aren't they?
So, I mean, you've mentioned a couple of key things there, which I think are really key. So, deliberately small and forcing yourself even more to do the stuff you really love and being able to say no. Through that process, I'm assuming that you become better and better at time efficiency. Could you share with us maybe one or two techniques that you use in your day to make it more time efficient or less distracted?
Yeah, and this is a work in progress, Brandon, as well. But, I initially was spending a fair bit of time with new clients who, for whatever reason, may not become my clients. It wasn't a good fit. So, at the start of the year, I implemented that only on Wednesday afternoons, I take new business calls. And that's what I do between 12 and school pickup time, is take new business calls. And, it gets booked out each week generally. So I sit there and I do those calls, and I'm happy to dedicate time to those people who may or may not become clients. It's a conversation. It's only 15 minutes to work out we're a good fit for each other, because just as they might not be a good fit for my business, I might not be a good fit for them either. So I found that blocking that time off means I can concentrate on the clients who are paying me money without distraction of new clients sort of ringing at any time of the day. So I found that really helpful. So that's one in particular, I guess. And the other one
I just want to, sorry to interrupt. When you say make time for new business calls, so let's dive a bit deeper. Are you using like a Calendly or a calendar automation tool where people can only book that time, or are you ringing people cold, or what's the deal?
Yeah, no, they book the time. So they may come through my contact form, and we sort of say, hey, book a time over here, and they go in and book the time. We did have an interesting one this week where she was in New York, and so we had to work out what's the time difference, and it didn't fit in my 12 to 3. So I did actually extend it out and do a 10 a.m. call this week, so that she was in the States. So she was in New York, so I had to be, I think it was 8 o'clock her time. She was drinking bourbon and I was drinking coffee. It was kind of an interesting little mix.
Is that surely that's some kind of cocktail?
I don't know, maybe.
So you've got a son, you've got a daughter. How would you like to see the world change for your daughter in particular, with regards to if she was to take the leap and jump into business herself? What would you like to see, change in a positive way to make it even more inclusive for her?
Yeah, so me and my husband both actually work for ourselves. So I think they're surrounded by, that trait of, yes, you can be your own boss and whatever. Like I was mentioning before, I hope that they probably see me working too much at home, which we're stuck doing at the moment. And I don't like that, because I would like to show them more that, success has more balance than probably it does at the moment. But, this is the life we're living at the moment. We're doing lots from home and we're juggling lots of different things. But growing up, and I talked about my dad earlier and my mum, they both worked really hard and they worked for other people, but had lots of creative ideas. Both of them not necessarily risk takers, and I'm not necessarily a risk taker either. My husband, off the charts risk taker, which is probably why I've ended up in my own business. So somewhere in the middle, having the confidence to take that risk, whereas my parents necessarily didn't take that risk, but had lots of entrepreneurial ideas and just didn't move it to the next level. So I think, having that confidence to have an idea and give it a go, and what's the worst that can happen? And my first business on my own was the Itty Bitty Book Band, as you mentioned before. And it was just an idea that I had when I was pregnant with my second child, knowing it's going to be difficult to go back into the corporate world. And I just didn't want it to not exist. I was like, hey, let's just give it a go. And being the risk averse, I probably wouldn't have done it. My husband was just like, what can happen here? And I thought, I don't want to be that person in 20 years' time saying, I had a great idea once that I did nothing about.
Yep.
So I guess it's like, have a go. What's the risk, and what's the risk of not doing it? So I guess for my kids, I hope that they go forward with confidence that everything will be okay at the end, but you need to give it a try.
I love that. You've almost taken the words out of my mouth for my next question. So maybe you just need to rejig slightly what your answer is, or maybe there's several. But I'd love to hear from you what is or are your biggest fears?
Yeah, okay. As a parent, there's lots of fears. You're a parent too. There's so many fears in a person living in a COVID environment. There's lots of fears from a business perspective. There's lots of fears as well that work creeps too much into our home lives. And yeah, like you said, I've almost answered it from before. But yeah, having that defined, when we can work from anywhere, we might be at our own funerals and people are still buzzing us to do something. It's even impossible to die these days without getting a text message, I think. So, really understanding that work-life balance and really turning off, I think, is something that I find difficult. I think a lot of other people find difficult as well. And I hope that our kids just don't think that that's how life is, that, you just work 24/7. And you work from home, you work from wherever. Our home lives should be really protected. Mm-hmm. And I think at the moment we're challenged on that because we're doing so much from home.
Yeah, absolutely. What is this secret talent that you have that no one knows? Surely there's got to be one. And it doesn't matter how unique or niche it is, but what's that one secret talent?
I nearly gave it away before, actually, I think. And
coffee and
I had the itty bitty book that I could back a caravan like nobody's business. So, if you've got a big caravan, we've got a ski boat too. So if you need me to back a boat, I'm your girl. So
done.
Yeah. So I've got quite good at backing over the years through necessity, not through wanting to do it. It's just, if you're out of the road and you have to get it done, I can back a trailer.
Parallel park a car with a trailer on. I like that.
I don't know about a parallel park. That might be challenging.
So for our audience listening, right, I always like to ask this question because we're on a podcast right now, and you're a digital marketer and you're right up to speed with stuff. Can you maybe name for me, if you are a podcast listener, one or two particular ones that you listen to that you just love, but then also an example of someone in your space that's using the element of having a podcast to assist them in their business?
Yeah, good question. I listen to stacks of podcasts. I probably listen to 3 a week. I don't know if that's stacks, actually. Given the time I have, I feel it's stacks. And you know what? I find it sometimes hard to listen to businessy podcasts because we're doing so much during the day and I just need to switch off from that. So there's a lady called Zoe Marshall and she runs something called The Deep. I'm not sure if you've heard of that. And it's deep stories connecting with humans. It's totally not related to digital at all, but I find it just takes you and some of the stories, there's actually a Geelong girl who's been on it and she introduced me to the podcast. That's when I first learned about it. So I find The Deep really confronting in some circumstances, but it also takes me to somebody else's circumstances, life. It's living in someone else's shoes, so I really enjoy that. But I do listen to podcasts as well from other generally female business owners. Kate Toon runs the Shopify, the recipe for SEO success. And so obviously SEO podcasts are something that are high on my agenda. And I do listen to a lot of Shopify podcasts as well. So I don't know, take your pick. There's a fair few there.
I love that. What's the advice you wouldn't give to your younger self?
The advice I wouldn't give?
Well, I asked this one because I hope that maybe you can think of a time when you maybe got some advice that maybe even was considered quite acceptable and everyone was on board with. And at the time, you kind of were brave to yourself internally and said, you know what, that just does not sit well with me. I'm just going to deflect that one.
Yeah, okay. Advice for him. when we go against our gut, I think we make really bad decisions. And so I think not going with your gut, I don't know if this is answering your question, but, for the last 4 years, I've thought about presenting at the Small Business Festival. I didn't do it. One year I spoke to someone who pretty much said, you can't do it. And I felt like I could, but I was wanting somebody else to sort of lift me up and give me the confidence. They didn't deliver in that particular circumstance. I ended up doing it this year, and my gut told me I know this stuff, I can do it, and the presentation was great. So I guess going with your gut and maybe not relying on somebody else to lift you up could be some advice, but that's not what to do. I guess not listen to negativity from others. Is that a good way to wrap that up? That question?
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense, but it's because sometimes we can really get an example of a time when. But maybe what I'd counter that with is, let's hear now the piece of advice that you definitely 100% would give to your younger self.
To my younger self. Yeah, so and it's come through in this discussion a fair bit, struggling with confidence and imposter syndrome, which is a thing. So I guess what I would give to my younger self, and I kind of repeat it to myself now, just keep doing what you love and things will work out. Because, they say that thing of you'll never work a day in your life if you're doing what you love and that type of stuff. I really believe that to be true. I really do love SEO. I do love helping other businesses shine and get more traffic to their sites. And so if there was no money in this tomorrow, I'd probably still be dabbling in it and doing stuff. So for me, this is a job and it is whatever, but I can't imagine doing anything else. So I think you've got to find what fills your cup and just do that. So I would say that to my younger self, just keep doing, I actually went to uni and did economics, believe it or not, for 1 year until I realized this is definitely not for me. And because when I went to uni, digital marketing wasn't even a thing. It wasn't even invented yet. So, I didn't know what was going to fill my cup until it was invented a bit later on. So,
is there a particular quote that you live and die by?
Oh, not particular. There's lots of quotes, and I don't have one that's come to mind. Thanks for putting me on the spot with that one. The dance like no one's watching. I keep trying to remind myself of that. Only because I'm not someone that would dance when no one's watching. So it's, I would think about what other people think of what's happening, and I really have to push that away and just do stuff. So that's the one that came to mind when you said it, but it's not one that's sticking on my wall. I'm not a big quotes person, to be honest. I enjoy a quote, but I'm not someone that lives and dies by a mantra hanging on my wall. I have lots of them.
Yeah, I love it. Well, Kerry Bennett from Yellow Door Digital, you've been awesome. I want to give you the opportunity to share with us, how can we engage, collaborate, and move forward with you from this? How do we find you, get in touch, and do something with you?
Yeah, well, I'm on Instagram a little bit and Facebook as well as Yellow Door Digital. The website is yellowdoordigital.com.au. You can have 15 minutes with me on a Wednesday afternoon to chat. Yeah, that's it. Wednesday afternoons, unless you're in New York City, and then we can maybe make it 10 a.m. on a Wednesday morning if that works. But yeah, so that's check the website, send me an email, or hit me up in the social spaces.
Love it. Kerry, thanks for your time. Can't wait to do it in person. Hopefully, fingers crossed, sometime soon.
Yeah, that'd be great, Brandon. I appreciate you having me on, and to hit me with some of the deep questions, make me think about stuff on a Friday afternoon.
That's it.